feel awful.
Why? It's not like it's your fault.
Human beings are strange creatures. We all seem to like things that make us feel something. And that something doesn't always have to be joy. As a matter of fact, I would say the most memorable things are things that make us feel grief, despair, anxiety, anger. And, you might not think that's weird because you might understand that, hey, as humans, we kind of compartmentalize things that are dangerous or saddening more than we do with joy, because in a survival sense, it makes more sense to remember the things that affect you in those more negative ways. However, the thing that I find most beautiful about humans is that we don't have to see it as negative. And when you go see films, oftentimes they are trying to pull a mix of all of these emotions from your brain in order to make the best experience that you could possibly have. In order to do that and make things more impactful, they will utilize everything from slow motion to the soundtrack to the atmosphere or tone to the acting. Everything comes together to make a beautiful moment of pure emotional drive. And what I'm going to be talking about today does all of those things by using almost all of those things. I don't think there's any slow motion though. And that thing that I'm going to be talking about today is the Oz Dust ball scene from the Wicked film. If you haven't seen the film Wicked, it did release on streaming recently. I think it's still probably like $20, but if you do want to go watch it, go ahead and do so and come on back and then we can go ahead and discuss this scene that likely if you've seen it, you also remember. Now, before I dive on into the rest of this, let me just say, if you guys like movie analysis, movie breakdowns, other type of media breakdowns such as music or pop culture, definitely like and subscribe. It always helps a small channel like this, and we are so close to 10,000 subscribers, so if you can go ahead and, again, subscribe, I would really appreciate it. So, the Oz Dust ball scene, for the uninitiated or for the people that somehow forgot, let me just remind everybody, essentially, in the film of Wicked, and I believe in the musical, Glinda gives Elphaba the typical pointy hat that the Wicked Witch of the West is known for. She takes it as a genuine show of kindness and she, treats it with gratitude, where ultimately she then goes and gets Glinda into this high-ranking, wizard thing. Listen, I'm bad with some specifics, just roll with me. But essentially, she then, Elphaba, wears the hat to the ball, which is basically like their homecoming dance type thing, it seems like. And in this scene, essentially, we see that everybody starts to laugh at Elphaba. She is treated as an outcast and she is made fun of. Once again, everybody, again, because of her green skin, is like, you're haha, funny, ugly. Where literally, I swear to God, this is pretty privilege. I swear, if Ariana Grande pulled up in that bitch with that motherfucking hat, nobody be laughing. But ultimately, the scene sets up a lot of this tension because all of a sudden, once Elphaba comes in, the music starts to tamper down and the laughter of everybody around starts to, so we can really feel exactly the tension that Elphaba might be feeling in this moment. She then just gives in to the mob and places the hat on the ground, saying, fine, if this is what you want, then you can have it. She then tries to continue and dance on her own and say, hey, I'm just going to try to become a part of this. I'm going to do what I think I'm supposed to do, which is dance, even though there's no music. Of course, everybody around still laughs and points, and she realizes that the power that she holds is not necessarily in herself or in being accepted, but it's in the negative reactions that others have to her. And she notices this when she moves towards the crowd in her dancing, and this is why she then becomes more and more angry and provocative with the dances, making people scared seemingly intentionally, because she realized, hey, this is the power I have. And ultimately, if the differentiation of herself and the fear that others have about her is the power that she holds, why not accept that? And this is when she goes and picks up the hat and puts it back on. Now, I may think that she definitely accepts it in this moment, but that doesn't mean she accepts it in a way that she's happy with. She, of course, would rather be cared for or be accepted by the crowd, which is something that is kind of called out. Ultimately, we have basically, throughout this whole thing, no music, no backing track until Elphaba, claps her hands together after putting the hat back on. This is when this kind of tense, kind of ringing ear sound plays underneath as we start to see that Glinda really is feeling awful about this situation, and she, states,
I'll say this much. She doesn't give a twig when anyone thinks.
course she does. She just pretends not to.
After, he says, oh, she really doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks about her, she says, no, she does. She just pretends not to. Ultimately, I thought this worked very well because earlier on, there's a thing where, Glinda says, oh, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, but it's very clear that she, again, just is pretending not to, and I can't remember if there's even something directly said like that, but again, it feels like a callback to that earlier scene. And through having this very tense underlying music, it very much gives this feeling of both Elphaba and Glinda not really knowing what to do in this moment, being flashbanged essentially by this intense moment that has come about. And of course, Glinda, now realizing that, hey, this girl was nice to me. She really didn't need to be made fun of. I don't know why I even hated her to begin with, because she clearly didn't really do anything to me, and that's why she begins to feel awful. It feels real that Glinda feels this way because she does it in front of everybody. Ultimately, what she does is she goes up to Elphaba, and with this tense underlying track, ultimately she tries to do the same thing, dance in a similar way, and try to connect with Elphaba on the level that she's currently at. Although Glinda's popular friends come up and tell her to stop, and she turns to them and in a very saddened and calm voice says no. And I think this is a very beautiful moment as well. And that's the thing about this, is ultimately it's a mixture of sadness and bullying, and also of understanding and of outright rejection of the, status quo, in order to give somebody an in order to bring an outsider into the circle and give them some type of understanding and give them some type of friendship. I think Ariana Grande actually in interviews had one of the better statements about this. She basically said that in this little interaction between Elphaba and Glinda, it's like two baby deers trying to figure out how to communicate with each other in the wild for the first time. And I thought that was a really interesting tidbit. But another interesting tidbit is that this entire scene, for the most part, was apparently freestyled. Ultimately, there were, of course, the base ideas of what it was going to be. However, a lot of the things that happened in the moment, for example, Glinda, going up and dancing with her and it turning into this very emotional moment where Elphaba cries, that was not how it was done in the musical, apparently. In the musical, there was a little bit more comedy to it and whatnot, where here, it was definitely played for the emotions. Ultimately, what happens after she says no to her friends, Elphaba and Glinda, they dance together, people are kind of looking at them weird, but sooner or later, they just kind of accept it, and, basically, they go and start dancing fully together in a kind of very beautiful dance where it ends with Elphaba crying and Glinda wiping her tear away. Throughout the scene of them dancing, it comes to a crescendo in the music where it goes from that tense, ear-ringing sound into a very slow piano ballad, and then it moves up into a much more fast-paced and standard, dancing song. Between that kind of crescendo, as well as the beautiful way that everything's shot, often doing close-ups rather than wide shots in order to really get the emotion on the actors' faces, and on top of it being so real because it was a very natural moment that apparently happened in, rehearsal, and they ultimately didn't know if it would even happen again during the actual scene, but luckily it did. And ultimately, I think it all comes together in such a satisfying way that makes everything feel just so emotionally impactful. It makes you feel, again, the sadness of Elphaba at the beginning, her disappointment in Glinda, Glinda's disappointment in herself and her own sadness, their kind of, joy when it comes to being able to finally communicate and understand each other, and it just works in such a grand way with everything from the shots to the music to the acting. And that is how you pull together a fantastically beautiful emotional scene. So what do you guys think? Do you guys like the Oz Dust Ballroom scene? Did you guys like any other scenes more in Wicked? What is your favorite scene, or did you not like it at all? Let me know in the comments down below. Besides that, guys, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That'll pop up during the outro, and the rest of our links are down in the description. Besides that, guys, I will see you all in the next one.
Abducted by my brain and it drains all the dopamine, pain leaving nothing but the